What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to talk to you about Faraday Future. They just had their big event. I want to go over some of my true thoughts of that, some latest updates, and everything else you need to know. But first, make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, and with that, let's get right to it. So Faraday went down 22.58% on Friday, $1.91 the low, $2.44 the high. You did see a lot of volume, so 35.4 million shares being traded, 13.8 is the average. So when it comes down to Faraday, they've actually done a pretty good kind of move higher. So over the last 1 month, still factoring in the 22% pullback on Friday, still up 26.06%. So you got to give credit when credit is due. But for those of you who aren't familiar with my channel, I actually used to cover Faraday quite significantly, kind of calling them out, which largely was accurate. But in Q1 2025, I mentioned that I was going to take a step back and just let it play out. And of course, I've been kind of keeping tabs on it here and there, which has been slowly improving. But it all comes down to them executing on the FX brand. And I think in reality, the big hype that did happen on the 17th was just another typical Faraday type of scenario. So for those of you that are new to Faraday, they really do hype up a lot of their events. They're good at doing that, but they tend to always fall short. And ultimately, based on the event that did occur on the 17th, there wasn't really that substantial of technology. So AI tech, like there wasn't really anything. And as I've brought up in the past, technically everything that they've considered AI and advancements and things like that, they don't own the patents for that. So that like whole Faraday type of scenario is very questionable to me. But the FX Super One, I have a Discord on a side note. It is completely free to join, but I've had a lot of individuals throwing up some of these videos, and they have nothing to do. They've never really mentioned Faraday in the past, but these videos are comical as hell. I don't know what Faraday was smoking, who thinks that this is a good idea. I get it that the broader market is transitioning to kind of SUVs and vans, but this is absolutely ugly. And yeah, I unfortunately haven't really looked at a lot of their financials, but the R&D on this, I don't know. That's one thing on a side note, is that Faraday is really crazy into influencers. I don't know why, but even I had Jerry email me asking to do some collaboration. I kind of just mentioned, I'm like, I don't think you actually know my history with Faraday. I've been calling you guys out as not necessarily the most credible company. So even this, Mariah Carey, a lot of things like that, is just goes to show that they are trying to hype themselves up more than what they actually deserve. So I prefer a company that lets the product speak for itself, not just getting paid influencers such as pretty much everyone listed and being shown here. So let me know your viewpoint, but nonetheless, I think this is just another failed kind of flop event. It is going to be coming down to the FX 5 and 6, so that is going to be unveiled end of 2025. Like I said, Q1, I did kind of take a step back and I said, hey, they mentioned it is going to be by May/June. Of course, it did get pushed back slightly, but it's going to be the FX 5 and 6. That is going to be the make it or break it. If that does flop, then regrettably, Faraday is going to be done. It's definitely done a lot of good things lately. But even with this recent news that did come out on July the 16th about the 105 million in financing, which I believe it was 82 in new convertible debt. And so of course you guys already know my viewpoint on that. That is absolutely so destructive to the stock price, and there's countless companies that go down just based on that. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Webull, so ticker BULL, just IPO'd recently, and they got hit. They went down like almost 15% just by announcing a deal, some partnership and financing with a toxic lender. And that's no different than Faraday. Faraday has the same toxic lender, and I believe it's Yorkdale or York, whatever it is. But yeah, it's definitely, I don't think a lot of people actually do grasp on how damaging that is. So the fact that Faraday is still relying on that, it kind of speaks volumes of just their risk, right? Because if they were a credible company with up and coming kind of promises, you would have credible companies, lenders giving them good rates and not having them to rely on toxic lenders. So this in reality, I think, is still the writing on the wall that there is a significant risk involved with Faraday. That's just my viewpoint, of course, and I always like to play devil's advocate. I don't like to ever pump up individuals nor bring it down. If you want to buy Faraday, if you want to sell Faraday, I could care less. All I'm saying is that I think that given the circumstances, it's make it or break it. Like I kind of mentioned, end of December or end of 2025, if they flop on the FX 5 and 6, then Faraday is going to be dwindled out within 6-9 months from then. So it's very unfortunate. Faraday has definitely done a lot of good things recently, but I think that has largely been attributed to the broader market really moving higher, and just Faraday generally putting out a lot of news. That's one thing that Faraday is really good at, and of course, same goes for their events. They're really good at hyping it up and marketing themselves, getting influencers and people involved, but like I said, I would rather companies just rely on the product itself. So that's my general thoughts. I know it might not be the most kind of optimistic, but that's just my general thoughts. I really do hope that Faraday does prove me wrong. Just says, F you, Cal. I'm going to go up to the moon and all the other fun jazz. But yeah, we just have to kind of wait and see. As far as some data points, looking at shorts, currently 28.5% of the free float is being shorted, works out to be 26.39 million shares overall being shorted. Just posted a video recently, top 5 most heavily shorted EVs. Faraday was number 2, so definitely it is heavily shorted. On Friday, shorts did return 238,000 shares, so that of course goes to show that big money was selling on Friday. So that 22% pullback was largely institutions selling, because shorts returning, in case you don't know, that is them adding buying pressure. So not necessarily the best. When it comes down to options, there was 538,000 in calls, 327,000 in puts. 54% of all the options being done were bearish in nature. So people and institutions, I guess based on the dollar value, it would be institutions, are anticipating a little bit more downside. And if we do look at the bulls standpoint, there's a consensus for it to be roughly around that $2 range going into next week. And then the bears are anticipating for it to be sub 2. So clearly that's a key pivot. If you're looking at trading it though, with it right now at $1.92, it is trading between this R1 and the pivot. $1.88 is a strong support, followed by $1.69. Flip side, 207 and then 218. So in the short term, I don't feel like this pullback is justified, because of course the broader market has really been pushing Faraday higher as well. So I feel like there is an opportunity for it to really move higher, but this definitely, that whole kind of Super One is ugly as hell. So that, I think, was just more of a eye-opener, as well as their lack of true AI. So I think that's something that they definitely do need to work on, in my opinion, because even they have it in their title, right? Faraday Future Intelligent Electric Inc. So their AI isn't really intelligent and they don't really own the patents. So something definitely does need to be answered as far as that. I know Jerry has done a lot of interviews recently, and I don't think he's actually answered where that tech is housed, like who owns actual patent to that. Is it a subsidiary of Faraday? Is it someone else that they have some licensing deal with? Like, that's still a very big question mark, and nobody really is able to answer that. But nonetheless, this is my quick overview of some recent updates with Faraday, things that you need to keep in mind if you're wanting to day trade or whatever else. So let me know your thoughts on Faraday. Have you been buying? Were you optimistic about this kind of event? Are you satisfied with this Super One? What's your kind of general thoughts on Faraday? One final thing, if you are looking for some solid buy signals, pop over to my Patreon and give buy signals on stocks, options, crypto, many of which have been absolutely on point. Definitely worthwhile to pop over there and take a look. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.